well, just to give you a little bit of his background for those who are unfortunate enough not to know him. Mahatma Prabhu was born in Los Angeles, California in 1950. In 1969, at the age of 19, he first met Srila Prabhupada through the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Then later that year met Srila Prabhupada personally in Los Angeles. In January of 1970, he moved into the temple in Berkeley, California, and shortly after received first and second initiation. He went on to do a variety of services, including book distribution, Sankirtan leader, temple president, college preaching, congregational development, and various educational projects. This has culminated in the work he does today, developing workshops, social media, online courses, and books, both for devotees as well as the general public through his company, Sattva. And the address is www.thesattva-way, one word, thesattva-way with 2 T's.com. He practically shows the many ways that Krishna consciousness offers solutions to today's challenges and rights, and teaches in a way that resonates with devotees and people in general by helping them see life as a spiritual practice. Mahatma Prabhu is well known in ISKCON for his recorded and live music, most notably his recording of Brahma Samhita, but also for his workshops on such essential topics as japa, forgiveness, humility, vows, and marriage. He is now based in Alachua, Florida. He lives with his wife, Janava, and daughter, Braja Sundari, and travels about 4 months a year. So welcome, Mahatma Prabhu, brother.
Hare Krishna. That bio is a little old.
Well,
I wish I lived in Mayapur 4 months a year, but
you can update it live.
And I wish that was the, yeah.
Tell us what we missed.
I think that address doesn't work, but that's okay because that site is for non-devotees.
So I did offer you to do either Bhagavatam class, and I give you the verse, or to speak about topics that are of relevance to devotees today, or that are in your mind, or do a combination of both. So please take it away. Do what you wish.
So let's do the verse and see what happens.
Okay.
I looked at the verse last night, very shortly, and I thought, I don't want to read the purport. I want to also be like you, reading it for so-called the first time. So I'll get spontaneous. Hare Krishna. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sanyavari Paschatya.
One thing, devotees, if you are so kind, please video yourselves from the unvideo position so the speaker can see you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. It's a little cool here, and I just got back late last night, and that's why I look like a snowman, but I just put the heat on, so during the class the room will warm up. Nice to see all of you. Thank you. So should we put the verse on the screen so you can all chant?
Sure. I'll share the screen. Yes.
That is a good idea.
But you don't expect someone to repeat it. Just let's get that.
Okay, so I need screen sharing capability here.
Queenie, can you give him?
Prabhu. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Vilas Prabhu. This morning I thought you should write a book, and the book's called How Taking Care of Cows Will Save the World, or something like that. What do you think? Good idea?
It sounds like a good idea. Yeah, maybe I'll start working on it.
That's Prabhupada's, that's what he said, right? Taking care of cows will save the world, will change the world, will solve all problems in the world. Or we make a t-shirt, take care of cows, it will save the world. I I haven't got host sharing. Maybe I should just start anyway.
Yeah, just start.
Okay, so this is it 4:24:56? Is that correct?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is chanting the song sung by Lord Śiva. Yatra nirishtam aranam kritanto nabhimanyate vishwam vidbham shayam virya shorya vish purjita bhruva. Yatra, wherein nirvishtam aranam, a completely surrendered soul, krita antaha, invincible time, na abhimanyate, he does not go to attack Vishram, the entire universe. Vidvam shayam, by vanquishing virya, prowess, shorya, influence, vishpurita, simply by expansion, bhruva, of the eyebrows. Translation. Simply by expansion of his eyebrows, invincible time personified can immediately vanquish the entire universe. However, formidable time does not approach the devotee who has taken complete shelter at your lotus feet. Let me read that again. Simply by expansion of his eyebrows, invincible time personified can immediately vanquish the entire universe. However, formidable time does not approach the devotee who has taken complete shelter at your lotus feet. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 10:34, it is said that the Lord, in the shape and form of death, destroys all a person's possessions. Mrityu sarva harash chaham. I am all devouring death. The Lord, in the shape of death, takes away everything that is created by the conditioned soul. Everything in this material world is subject to perish in due course of time. However, all the strength of time cannot hamper the activities of a devotee. For a devotee takes complete shelter under the lotus feet of the Lord. For this reason only is a devotee free from formidable time. All the activities of the karmis and jnanis, which have no touch of devotional service, are spoiled in due course of time. The material success of the karmis is destined to be destroyed. Similarly, the impersonal realization attained by the jnanis is also destroyed in the course of time. Arura krachena param padam tatha padantyado nandrita yushmarangraha. That's from Bhagavatam 10:32. If you don't know that verse, I suggest you learn it because Prabhupada quoted this so often. Arura krachena means going up, param padam tata means to the Brahman, and patant yado means, ado means down. Padant, they fall down because, nadrita yushmanang, because they neglected your feet. They went only to Brahman, they neglected your feet, and they couldn't stay there. To say nothing of the karmis, the jnanis undergo severe austerities to attain the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. The Prabhupada means to say nothing of the karmis. In other words, they're working very hard. Jnanis are working even harder with their austerities. But because they do not find the lotus feet of the Lord, they fall down into this material existence. Unless one is fully situated in unalloyed devotional service, there is no guarantee of liberation, even if one is elevated to the heavenly planets or to the impersonal Brahman effulgence. A devotee's achievement, however, is never lost by the influence of time. Even if a devotee cannot completely execute devotional service, in his next life, he begins from the point where he left off. Such an opportunity is not given to the karmis and jnanis whose achievements are destroyed. The Bhakta's achievement is never destroyed, for it goes on perpetually, be it complete or incomplete. This is the verdict of all Vedic literatures. Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashto Bijayate. Bhagavad Gita 6:41, that is the verse that the yogi will take birth in a wealthy family or the family of a Brahmin or Vaishnava. If one is unable to complete the process of Bhakti-Yoga, he is given a chance in his next life to take birth in a pure family of devotees or in a rich family. In such families, a person can have a good opportunity to further progress in devotional service. If you've ever wondered why it's a good chance, why you would have a good chance if you took birth in a wealthy family, because you might think, if I take birth in a wealthy family, I might forget Krishna. Prabhupada said, if you take birth in a wealthy family, then you can focus on your spiritual life. You don't have to work hard and worry about maintenance. Everything is easy. And Prabhupada also said, but if you take birth in a wealthy family, you might be deluded by the wealth and give up your devotional service. So that's interesting. I just wanted to plant that seed. I was in the class when he said it. Coming back is no guarantee. That's the point. When Yamaraj, coming back even in an ideal situation is not a guarantee. When Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, was instructing his assistants, he told them not to approach the devotees. The devotees should be offered respect, he said, but do not go near them. Thus, the devotees of the Lord are not under the jurisdiction of Yamaraj. Yamaraj is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he controls the death of every living entity. Yet he has nothing to do with the devotees. Simply by blinking his eyes, time personified can destroy the entire cosmic manifestation. But he has nothing to do with the devotee. In other words, devotional service, which is rendered by the devotee in this lifetime, can never be destroyed by time. Such spiritual assets remain unchanged beyond the influence of time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thaigo Priman. Vanchakalpatrubhis Chakrapa Sindhyavicha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Magyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Meditam Dena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Karuti Vachalam Pangu Langayate Girim Yakrapata Maham Vande Sri Guru Dinatarina. This purport kind of sounds like an advertisement for Goloka Vrindavan, doesn't it? You know, like here in Florida, we have these, retirement communities, all the features, 12 tennis courts, 3 golf courses, saunas, swimming pools, parties, parks, and so on. And when I was first a devotee, it's kind of when I was reading Krishna consciousness, it kind of, in many ways, sounded like advertisements to go back to Godhead. Like, why are you still here? You could be there. It's better. And the price is 16 rounds, 4 principles. And if you don't do that, you're going to work very hard. And what will you get by all your hard work? More karma. And then this cycle. We call it the wheel of karma, right? You heard that? The wheel of karma. You know why it's a wheel? Because if you're not practicing spiritual life, you live in this world and everything you do is either creating karma or getting rid of your old karma, but you're always creating new karma. So anadi karma, the karma is like, it just keeps going around in a cycle, right? It never ends. So even if you do something to end your karma, but you'll still act again. So the wheel keeps going. You'll create more karma. There's no way to stop it. And therefore you stay here forever. Right? I mean, unless you're a devotee. So you remember the story of Ajamil? And the Yamadutas were pretty much in shock when the Vishnu Dutas were like, no, you can't touch him. Why can't we touch him? he's sinful. I go, not anymore. He said the name Narayana and it wiped out all his karma. Everything was gone. You can't punish him now because there's no reason to punish him because he has no karma. It's finished. The wheel is over by the name of Narayana. So Prabhupada's saying, unless there's some touch of bhakti, even the jnanis, what happens? Okay, they go to Brahman. Right? So try this one at home, everyone. No desire. Eliminate all desire, even the desire for no desire. And for that long, you can stay in Brahman. And as soon as, you get a little hungry or thirsty or, think about, I wonder what's going on at Sunday feast. You're out of there, back in the material world. As soon as there's desire, you come down, right? So to go to Brahman, to that Brahman position, Prabhupada's saying, you have to do austerity, and then you have to come to this point of desirelessness, and then you can merge in Brahman. No easy task. And you will stay there as long as you have no desire. Zero, nothing. Okay, did you try that? How long did that last? How long did you stay in Brahman, everyone? And if you have the desire to stay in Brahman and not come out of Brahman, yeah, you're out immediately. That's a desire. So it's like, Prabhupada's pointing out, look at bhakti compared to these other processes. If you don't do bhakti, okay, you can do Gyan yoga, or you could do karma yoga, and then you could go to heavenly planet. It's better up there, but still there's this chain of karma. And you stay up in the heavenly planets, and it's so good up there. And Prabhupada explained, no gray hair, no wrinkles. You're always youthful. You have one child, and that's in the end of your life. And pretty much it's sense gratification at its best. And then one day there's no sign because there's no old age, no arthritis, no wrinkles. One day you die. That's like very painful. And so Prabhupada says they come down in a tear. They come down in the soul comes down from the spiritual world in a tear. And what is that tear? It's them crying because they had so much enjoyment taken away from them. They cry and they come down. Did you ever have that as a child? Like you're having like a really good time and then your parents say, okay, it's over. Come in, get ready, school tomorrow. You ever had that experience and you want to cry? I had that experience once on vacation. I was having such a good time with my friends. It was Easter vacation. I remember this to this day. And Sunday night, I was crying because I had to go back to school. I was like, we had such a good time. I don't want to go to school. So it's something like that. The sense gratification, the materially conditioned mind thinks I want to enjoy. Yeah, but the more you enjoy, the more painful it is when it's taken away. And yes, it is eventually taken away. And if it's taken away when you're younger and you can still enjoy, it's very painful. If it's taken away when you're older and your body breaks down, it's easier to give up because you can't really enjoy anymore. And that's really Krishna's mercy that he does that. My father died at 92. At the age of 90, he couldn't read anymore, and reading was really important for him. Reading, watching television were two important things, and he couldn't really see. Then he was losing his hearing. And we'd say, you should get, I don't know, this is kind of typical. You should get a hearing aid. What? You should get a hearing aid. What? You should get a hearing aid. I don't need a hearing aid. And then finally he realized, after a while, he needed one. I don't even think he got it. And I moved back to LA to take care of him, and we go to the doctor. And this is exactly what he said. When the doctor said, how are you? He said, can you kill me? And the doctor said, well, he was in a wheelchair this time. He said, I'm in a wheelchair. I can't see, I can't hear. I'm 92. What's the point? So that's Krishna's mercy. You can die that way, but not everybody dies like that. I think George Bush Sr. was in his 90s, and he was like doing all kinds of dangerous sports that 20-year-olds do. So if they don't get you coming, they get you going. So you enjoy, and the more you enjoy, the more attached you become. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali said something interesting. He is explaining how detachment and attachment works. So he said, if you think of something fondly, you remember, oh, we had a good time. That's how attachment develops. The more enjoyment something gives you, the more detachment you come. Have you ever seen a bad relationship? You've probably not. That's a bad question. Not have you ever seen. When there's a bad relationship, no, have you ever seen this? Someone's in a really bad relationship. They may not be married, or they may be, but after the relationship's over, they say things like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never getting married again. I don't even want to talk to a woman again. Actually, I don't even want to see them. I'm so traumatized, right? Of course, we know in a little while, usually it doesn't last. For some, it does. But Patanjali says the effect of suffering is detachment. You remember something and you think that was so painful, you become detached. You remember something and you think that's enjoyable, you become attached. And so if you've had a good life, you become very attached, and it's very painful to give it up. And that's why Gyan is an artificial process for renunciation, but Gyan is full of this is bad, that's bad, this is bad, that's bad. And, and some of the younger devotees was like, why do the women get such a bad rap in our books, in Bhagavatam? We were just at Bada Hari's house, 41st anniversary. We were there yesterday. And they were talking about, how they help one another and, what their life was like. And I was saying, the women in ISKCON, have gotten such a bad rap. And it's these women that have made the men so much better, so much more stable and steady. But the Bhagavatam is written from the man's perspective, and it's written for those, at least partially for those who want to become detached. So the process of Gyan is to say how bad everything is, because if you think how bad it is, then you become detached. And now it's time for a story about pizza. It's a very important story. So there was a seminar, and the leader of the seminar wanted to show this principle of detachment, how detachment will take place when you understand the negatives of something. So he asked a man to come on stage. We need a volunteer. And he said, what is your favorite food? He said, pizza. What? Pizza with what? And he described what he wanted. We can't describe in this Bhagavatam class. It's too sacred place to describe what he wanted on his pizza. But anyway, they brought in the pizza. And the facilitator said, tell me what's bad with this pizza. And so, of course, he had to start thinking what's wrong with it, because he loves pizza. And he said, so he's going down, gain weight, cholesterol, I have high blood pressure, it's not good. He went down the whole list of things that were bad about the pizza. I'm not making this up, this is serious. So then facilitator said, okay, now, do you want to eat the pizza? And these were his words. He said, it's making me nauseous. So that's the process of Gyan. And real detachment from pizza is to eat prasadam pizza. Then you don't have to worry about the other pizzas, but you'll just have to worry about detaching from the prasadam pizza. But that's another program. But we know Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti-Yoga Prayojita Janai Asubharagyam Gyanam Cha. We understand detachment is a byproduct of bhakti. That's real detachment. But the Gyanis, they have to detach by looking at all the pain in the world. And we've heard, I think it's Buddhist, sometimes they have a skeleton. That's their deity. They chant their mantras to the skeleton, just to remind them that, yes, from dust thou art and dust thou will become. Meditate on all the negative. And that's why some people, when they come to Krishna consciousness, they think, you devotees are so negative. Why are you always negative? You're always criticizing this and that. And we notice that is true, especially for younger devotees. The older devotees, they don't really do that so much. Well, maybe a little, not as much as they did when they were younger, because that's the way you become detached before you're actually detached. You just say how bad everything is. I have a god brother. Every single class he gives is exactly the same, as just the order changes. And it's all about how bad everything is. Well, it's not exactly the same because the things in the world change. So he could describe different things that are bad according to current events. And the class is just about how bad everything is. That's how he remains detached. So not the highest way, but that's the Gyan process. You have to do that. So Patanjali says, well, that's how you remain detached. Just think about how bad everything is. So we have some Grihastha Vision team representatives here who know well that process was used in the early days of ISKCON when a brahmachari reluctantly said, I guess I have to get married now because I can't remain celibate. Great reason to get married, everyone. How come you got married? Because I couldn't remain celibate. Like, what about the girl? Did you like her? Didn't matter. I couldn't remain celibate. You know. So how did those marriages last? And so then you get in that marriage and it's like, you know, and then the sannyasis come and tell you everything bad about marriage. And then you cry in class. Why did I get married? This is so bad. And it becomes dysfunctional on steroids, or 10 times over dysfunctional marriage. So we lived through that. And so that is an artificial process. But the point I was making originally is that when one meditates on past enjoyment, that's how attachment develops. You don't become attached to things that cause you pain unless you've got some mental illness and you love, you know. I mean, I've seen people like that. They love to harm themselves. So this is a psychological issue. They gravitate towards things that will make them suffer because they just have this, you could call it low self-esteem, or they lack self-love and they gravitate towards situations where they end up suffering. You've seen that, right? Brajalila Jack, I see that every day. Yeah. Isn't it? Like some people, yeah. They lack so much self-love that just like it's subconscious. It's, you know, they'll attract all the people who will cause them suffering. You know, that's like, why does this keep happening to me? Well, because somehow or other you think you deserve to suffer. But so the point I was making is that you go to heaven and then you enjoy, like we can't even imagine. Prabhupada said the cups in heaven are made of diamonds. Okay. You know, palaces that don't need lights because it's all jewels and the jewels are light. The women, I don't recommend brahmacharis going to heaven for this reason, Sahadev. The women are 1,000 times more beautiful than they are here. We have enough trouble here. What to speak of there? So they go there and the enjoyment is incredible and they suffer like anything when they leave there. So they come down in a tear, which is their tear. They're suffering like anything. So going to heaven doesn't work, even if, you know, it works for a while if you want material enjoyment, but it's not like good for your bhakti. So I was in Los Angeles. I had the great fortune to be in Los Angeles in 1972, and Prabhupada lived there for 3 months. So people say, did you ever see Prabhupada? How many times did you see him? Like every day for 3 months. I lived there also. And so we got to hear Bhagavatam class every day. And, you know, that was quite a memorable time to be there hearing his class. So Prabhupada would often talk about going back to Godhead in this lifetime. And as I said, he said, okay, Srimatam Suchidam Grihe Yoga Brashya Bhajayate. You could take birth in a Brahmin family, you could take birth in an aristocratic family. And then Prabhupada said, but you so much wealth, you may, you know, we're in LA and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I'll take birth in Bel Air. And I know what Bel Air is like because I lived fairly close to that place and I worked there. And it's like off the charts beautiful. The surgeons and the bank owners and the movie stars, that's where they have their homes. And it's like how many devotees join from Bel Air? Like, you know, go to the LA, next time you go to LA Temple, ask everybody, you live in Bel Air? Did you ever, you know? No, That's not where they're coming. Even Beverly Hills, which is one step down, one loka down from Bel Air. Well, read Deinana Maharaj, yeah. So, and then I live one loka down from Beverly Hills. This is still it was quite a nice loka. But none of my friends became devotees. So it's no guarantee that just because it's nice, it's going to happen. So the mood that Prabhupada has, as we all know, is do it in this life. Don't wait for another life. And then Prabhupada said something really interesting. He said, this was 1972. So he said, he's telling us, go back to Godhead. He said, because Kali Yuga is going to become very, very bad. You don't want to come back. And now we know so many of our not so many, but our God brothers and God sisters are starting to leave their bodies. So what was Prabhupada talking about? He was talking about the year 2000 plus. He said, the Kali Yuga is going to get really bad. You don't want to come back, because this is when many devotees would come back in the 2020, 21, 25, 2028. That's what he was talking about, how bad it's going to get. So I think we all know that Prabhupada's mood was like, do it in this life. Don't mess around. And I know a lot of devotees think, how in this life will I ever be Krishna conscious? This thought goes through everyone's head. And Prabhupada's telling us to do it. And he wouldn't tell us to do it if he had not given us the instructions to be successful. And many devotees are doubting. Prabhupada said, coming on the Jaladuta, I have no devotion, I have no knowledge, but I have great faith in the holy name. And I think that's the answer to this question. How can I do it? Put your great faith in the holy name, because that holy name can give you prema if chanted properly, without offense. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, if you don't chant the holy name properly, you will lose faith in the holy name, because you'll just get a dim glimmer of the holy name at best, and you will not feel affected by it. And thus, you'll think it doesn't work. I mean, you won't think it doesn't work. You'll think it doesn't work on me. The reason being, if we don't chant properly, that's the realization we get. This is not working. I'm not advancing as quickly as I should. At this rate, I'll never make it back to Godhead. I'm going like 2 feet every hour. How am I going to make it back to Godhead? So if we feel that way, I always say, look to the holy name, look to your chanting first, because Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur made this point. He said, if one is not chanting properly, they lose faith. If you don't execute devotional service properly, you lose faith because you don't have realization. And then you think, oh, it doesn't work. Or maybe it works on my neighbor, but it doesn't work on me. It's not. Well, here's a little ad for the holy name. It worked for Jagai and Madhai. It can work for you too. Yeah. And we think, yeah, that's a Leela, Jagai and Madhai with the Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda. Yeah. But what about me? Little old me. No, but if you take the holy name properly, you won't think that way. And if you do think that way, look to the quality of your chanting and thinking, am I just schnick, schnick, mom, romming? Schnick, schnick, rom, rom, schnick. Is that what I'm doing and hoping to get back to Godhead that way? It doesn't work like that. But if you actually take the holy name properly, and when you chant, that's what you do. You don't do anything else. You're just absorbed in that. Then you'll start to think, yeah, well, maybe I can become Krishna conscious in this life. You won't even think maybe I can, because you'll be feeling it so much. It will be a reality in your life. This is just my realization over and over again in my own life, when my chanting goes up and down, and in my life from teaching people who tell me, I don't think I can go back to Godhead, or a lot of them are not planning. But Prabhupada told us, this life, do it in this life. Pack your bags, finish your business. How many times did Prabhupada say that? Don't make me come back again to save you. Like over and over and over, all the time. He was saying that. 16 rounds, 4 principles, and you'll go back to Godhead in this life. And so many devotees will say, that's not possible. 16 rounds for, yeah, well, it depends on what kind of rounds you're chanting. 16 bad rounds? No, you won't go back to Godhead. But 16 good rounds, 4 principles. That's what Prabhupada said. How many times did he say it? Many, many, many. And we also hear things like Prabhupada telling the book distributors, you dedicate your life to this, you'll go back to Godhead in this lifetime. Wow. Back door. We'll get you in the back door. Bring, what was it Prabhupada said? Bring the Queen of England and someone else to the opening of Mayapur Temple. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will come and take you back to Godhead. Another back door, there's probably a lot of back doors up there, because there's a lot of us can need to get in the back door. We need a lot of doors, so it won't be crowded. And Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna Maharaj was like, he was in Juhu, and he said, this is crazy. This is just so difficult. My mind is so agitated, I can't even chant my japa. Prabhupada said, me too. And then Prabhupada said, you just dedicate this life to Lord Chaitanya, he will personally come and take you back to God. That's not an excuse for a bad japa. That was circumstantial. But, we have this evidence. And you go to Gaudiya Math, and if you go to Gaudiya Math, they will say it takes 3 lifetimes to go back to Godhead. So once the Gaudiya Math devotees, the followers of Srila Narayan Maharaj, they told him that Prabhupada said, in one life, you can go back to God. And he said, no, 3 lives. No, but Prabhupada said 1 life. And he stopped and he thought about it. And he said, Prabhupada is so powerful. He could do that in 1 life. So we take that as true. If we take Krishna consciousness properly, we follow our vows, we chant the holy name, making every effort to be absorbed and not commit offenses. We serve in a humble mood, respectfully, don't offend Vaishnavas, we appreciate. And Prabhupada said, this life, we can go back to Godhead. And that's what he wants to do. And then someone may say, well, isn't that, material desire? You want to go back to Godhead? I say, maybe, but that's what Prabhupada wants us to do. And when you become very advanced, of course, you won't want to go back to Godhead because you're already there. So that becomes natural, but if it's artificial, I just want to love Krishna life after life. That's good if it's real. That's how you feel. But Prabhupada's telling us, at least, in a lower stage, you should go back to Godhead. That's your job. That's your service to me. At one time, you remember, we have a godbrother named Vishal. Vishal is like, he's one funny. Well, he went back to God. He's really funny. How many of you know Vishal? Raise your hand. You know what I mean. He came to Alachua and he said, I was walking to my car and he goes, Prabhu, nice to see you. Hare Krishna. But I need a little money. You have any money? I said, okay. I went to my wallet, gave him $20 and says, is that all? Is that all you're giving me? You can't give me more. That's Vishal, like that. He was like that with Prabhupada. He went into Prabhupada's room during darshan, just walks in, Srila Prabhupada, I just finished reading the 7th canto. Can I borrow your 8th canto? Prabhupada, take it. So he had that kind of relationship with Prabhupada. And so one time, I don't know if you know this, Brajalila, but Vishal, had read in Prabhupada's books that the wife should do whatever the husband says, something like that, right? Does your husband make sure you do whatever he says? I'm sure he does, right? And if you don't, he punishes you, right? So he said, Srila Prabhupada, should my wife do whatever I say? And Prabhupada said, and you should be so arrogant to think like that. Classic Vishal story, He's like I don't know. We should make a TV show, call it Vishal. He's so funny, It's like, so sincere and gets everything wrong all the time. But he distributed books his whole life. Anyway, Vishal asked Prabhupada this question: should I desire to go back to Godhead, or should I just desire to serve? And he was a young devotee at that time. And so Prabhupada could understand, I just want to take birth to serve you, yeah. But you come back, and then what happens? You get deviated, So Prabhupada said, no, you're not advanced enough. You should just desire to go back to Godhead. So that's at a certain stage, one should desire to go back to Godhead, because if he thinks, I'll just come back and serve life after life, he may not serve life after life. He may serve Maya. So both things are acknowledged, obviously, in our Shastra, na dhanam na janam na shandu. I just want to take, birth after birth. Janmani, Janmani, Ishvare, Bhavatad Bhakti. Yeah, that's the goal for sure. But I'm just making the point that Prabhupada, as for us, he wanted us to finish, as he would say, quote unquote, finish your business in this life. Hare Krishna. So, what time are we supposed to end? Sarvatma.
Usually the classes go up until 8, but we can prolong it.
Well, we have time now for questions. I'll stop now.
Yeah. I have a question.
Okay, please ask.
I think I'm not debating or discussing what you propose or what Prabhupada's quotes you brought into the forum, but I think the ideal is set up quite high. Of course, we should shoot for a rhino, but even Arjuna himself asked Krishna, what does one do? What happens to one that is fallen, that didn't complete his mission? And this was Arjuna, who was talking directly to Krishna, was an eternally liberated soul, talking to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, asking our question. So what is expected of us?
Yeah.
Should we shoot for a rhino no matter in what position we are?
I don't think it's a rhino, actually. I think it's more like a puppy. I just think it's a rhino. And Arjuna was playing a Leela. So he's playing a Leela of the conditioned soul. So he's speaking about the condition. He's speaking like a conditioned soul. But 1866, what is Krishna saying? Okay, Arjuna, just forget everything I said and just surrender. Let's just become my devotee. So we know that Prabhupada, I understand your question. So I'll take it 360, but let me start at the highest. If you study Prabhupada's preaching, you see he was shooting for the highest, he's, when he came, chant 64 rounds, 32, 16 no less. Okay. Because what do you do as a guru, unless you shoot people for the highest, you point them towards the highest, they're always going to hit lower or tend to hit lower. So if you go down to, oh, it's okay. If you feel like chanting, chant. If you don't go on a guilt trip. We want you to be happy in Krishna consciousness. Okay. That's there also on a certain level. But once you become initiated, that's not there, So I was giving initiation on Nityananda's appearance day, and Nityananda was inspiring me to say that when you get initiated, at that point, you are committing to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. That's what you're doing. Otherwise, why get initiated? Why just sit there and make vows that maybe don't mean that much to you? At least you're saying, I'm going to be serious about this. And so us going back to Godhead is not our business. It's Prabhupada's business. It's Krishna's business. Our business is we follow, right? So you 16 rounds, 4 principles. The rhino gets reduced to a puppy. You just have to do that. And you do that, Prabhupada will come. And we know all the stories, right, of devotees who were not doing well. And at the time of death, Prabhupada appeared to them. Oh, Prabhupada, you've come. You know that story with one devotee left, and he got married. And after he died, his wife came to the temple, and she didn't know who Prabhupada was. She said, who is this Prabhupada? He said, well, he's the guru of ISKCON. So why are you asking? He said, well, because my husband, when he was dying, he stood up and he said, Prabhupada, you've come. And then he died. Like Hare Krishna, So Prabhupada's coming. Okay, this is the highest. This is what I want you to do. And then, of course, there's adjustments. But in my reading of Prabhupada, adjustments are fine. But once you get initiated, now there's a certain bottom line. And if you do that, Prabhupada will take us back to Godhead if we just do things right and have the right mentality. And so you don't really have to worry about the rhino will die on his own. You just have to chant Hare Krishna and follow the principles. And, that's good. The rhino will look at you and it'll go, so that's Yamaraj. Like, I can't touch you. You're a devotee. So I think the point that you're bringing, there's 2 points you're bringing out. One point is it doesn't seem like we're that advanced and we're going to make it. And the other point is everybody's on a different level and we don't want to, make people feel bad. But I think the process is more powerful than we imagine. And just surrender, Krishna will take care of you. And it's all downhill from there. My personal realization is it's all in the holy name. Everything is dependent on humility and chanting properly. And if we have humility, respect for Vaishnavas, we don't offend them, and we chant the holy name properly, we have a nice attitude towards our service, it's just going to happen. I think the problem is in the, the app. I do japa workshops, and in the workshops we ask devotees. At least recently, I've done a lot, and I asked devotees. I think we did 8 different workshops in last year online, and we do a poll. Rate your japa on a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being prema, so nobody has to worry about that. But 5 being average, not really good, not really bad, and then 6 being good, 7 better, 8 better, like really. Ruchi, taste, 9, bhava. And then 4 is like, not really good. 3, bad. 2, horrible. And 1, you can't even finish your rounds. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think the average is in ISKCON based on, so this was, there were 3,000 devotees last year who over 8 different courses took the japa workshops. So what do you think the average of these, and there are a lot of them from India, not just fallen Americans, Malechas and Yavanas like ourselves, but Indians born within that culture. Who would like take a guess? You could just spout it out, or you can, Krishna Premi said 4. Well, she was there. That's not fair. Okay.
I thought about 4 actually.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there.
Yeah, Prem Kishore, 3 or 4. Yeah, that's the majority. The majority are in 3 and 4. You get like, let's say if you get 1 or 2 who will say 6, but the next day after we go through everything, then you're getting 6 and 7s, 1 even 8, and the 4s get up to 5 and 6. And the 1s and 2s get up to 4. So I think that proves something. We're not in the good state, but if we put energy into japa, people can do it better. So we do that exercise just to show this is the Hare Krishna movement, and look at the quality of our japa. 4 means insufficient. 4 means, I tell them, if you're chanting on 4, you're probably thinking you're not going to go back to Godhead or get love of Krishna in this lifetime because it's not good enough. And that's why they chose that number. I said, it's not really good enough. So if we work on that, it's just my experience. If we work on that and we chant good rounds, we have this realization that I am nothing, and the holy name is everything. And therefore, it doesn't matter that I can't shoot the rhino, because the holy name is an atomic bomb for my rhino shooting business. And if I just take shelter of that, the holy name will do everything. And as Prabhupada said, I have no knowledge, I have no devotion, but I have great faith in the holy name. And so my thinking process is, Prabhupada comes into New York, 1966, all hippies. He's sizing up the whole thing. And what's Prabhupada's thinking process? It has to be the holy name can purify these people. It has to be. Otherwise, he would look at them and say, this is not going to work. Without the holy name, he just would have gone back to India. How are we going to help these people? So that's my realization. What is your realization, Sarvatma? So we're going to have a debate.
Well, I don't have any, but I have a sub question.
Okay.
You mentioned initiation. At the initiation time, you should be serious to make a commitment and so on.
Yes.
I do remember getting initiated when I was a whooping 5 months in the movement, and I heard stories of some of your god brothers who were initiated after maybe 24 hours. You know, I think Malati was 2 days in the movement before she got initiated. One sannyasi that I know, he was smoking a joint upstairs, and he was asked, "Hey, there is an initiation downstairs. Do you wanna join?" "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." And so I remember vowing, yes, I promise I'm going to follow the 4 regulative principles. I chant 16 rounds for the rest of my life, and life after life if necessary. After 5 months being barely a teenager, I had no idea what I was doing the next day. So in retrospect, I think maybe devotees should wait 10, 15, maybe 20 years when they have enough time to practice and see, oh yeah, I made it for 10 years or 15 years. Maybe I can make it for another 15. So yeah, I can get initiated now. What's your opinion on that?
Well, we have one potential initiate on this call of mine. I don't want to discourage her because I want her to get initiated. There is truth to it, and each spiritual master makes that decision. Sometimes that is better. Sometimes you can tell that to a disciple. Say, I'm not going to initiate you for 10 years. And they'll say, whatever you say, Guru Maharaj. And then you go, okay, you're qualified. I'll initiate you tomorrow. You can do that one. So if you're not going to initiate me for 10 years, I'm going to another guru. Good. Perfect. So Prabhupada also became more cautious as time went on. And I created a course on vows because I realized we don't know what vows are. The first vow I ever made in my life was at initiation. The second vow I ever made in my life was at marriage. And as you're saying, we didn't know what we were doing. It didn't go deep. So one thing, I created that course because I wanted devotees to understand what it means to take a vow. So I think everyone should understand that, definitely. And it's up to the spiritual master how he feels. And it will also depend on the background of it. If they were born in a Vaishnava family or a Brahmin family, and their grandmothers, in India, my grandmother was, my grandfather was, head of the village, he was the Brahmin priest, he was highly respected. And then we grew up doing Salagram, Shila Puja. You don't really have to worry about them. So there is wisdom in what you say, whether it should be 10 years. I mean, one thing you could say was don't initiate anybody under 50 because they're too young, or 60, because they'll be unstable, So it's a question that I think you'll get a million answers to if you ask a million people. I've asked the question also. Sarvatma, before I was initiating, I asked this question to 6 gurus. What is better, an initiated devotee chanting 4 rounds, of course, who committed to 16, or a non-initiated devotee chanting 4 rounds who didn't commit to 16 because the first one is not following their vow? Who knows what do you think the guru said? The first category, initiated at 4, or the second category, non-initiated at 4?
I would say depends on who you ask, because there are people to the right and to the left. So
yeah. I guess I asked all to the left.
I see. Okay.
Maybe I didn't do my survey. I didn't do diligence in my survey in it because all my friends were probably on the left. So they all said
it wasn't a good slice of the.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was. I would be fired from the university for doing a prejudiced survey. They all said it's better they're initiated. I said why? I said because of their connection with me, I can help them, and their dedication. So that's also there, the dedication to the guru is that you get power from that. I have a disciple who's always saying what you say. He said, these people, they're too young. They don't know what they're doing. They're 20 years old. They don't know, they're just putting on their Krishna conscious diapers. They don't know what they're doing. And then, the other mood is, well, give them a chance. It's Harinam Diksha. Give them a chance. And second initiation, yeah. Be more careful. Prabhupada said, They said, Prabhupada, so many devotees are falling. No, they said, Prabhupada, do you take the karma at initiation? And Prabhupada said, yes. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya said, do not take many disciples. And then Prabhupada said, but we are prepared to go to hell for Lord Chaitanya. So it's kind of Prabhupada's mood, of course.
I can't remember if it was Narottam Vilas or Bhakti Ratnakar, that a guru shouldn't take more than 5 disciples.
But Prabhupada's saying, just like I had 5,000, then there are 5,000 of you, and you take each 5,000. I always feel, as you all do, that if Prabhupada gives us an order, however dangerous or difficult it is, he'll protect us because he wants us to do it. And we're just, I asked Radhanath Swami, I said, because I was always confused. Why would a guru take so? He had like maybe 20,000 disciples. When I asked him, like, why would you take so many disciples? You can't care for that many. And he said, I go to different places, and the leaders are asking me to initiate these devotees in their area. And he said, I'm just doing it to satisfy the leaders. So I heard now he's not taking disciples in Russia anymore. He's not, I guess he's limited in his traveling. He doesn't want to take disciples where he doesn't travel. And this is an issue is being discussed now in the GBC and Sabha. We discuss this all the time. I heard the Bhakti Swami, I heard it said, I don't know, the authorities said that a community is 150. You can't remember the names of more than 150 people. I wish I could remember the names of even 150. So in other words, if you have 150 disciples, that's about as many people as you can be close with, have some one-on-one contact within, your day-to-day affairs over a small period of time. So I was told, I asked Bhakti Swami, how many disciples can you take care of? And he said, 200. I said, how many disciples do you have? 2,000. I say, why? And he said, people are asking me, they have faith. I can't turn them away. So faith is very important. And just this is a difficult situation. Just the other day, a devotee wrote me and she said, I heard that Radhanath Swami is not taking Russian disciples. And she said, I thought, it was funny. I mean, I don't know how it came out in Russian because it's translated. She said, I thought of taking Diksha from you because I thought you and Radhanath Swami were the same, were very similar. But I realized you weren't. And I said, I could have told you that. There's a big difference between us. Hold on a second. Yeah, we were born in the same year. We come from the same country. We come from the same religion. But after that, there's a lot of difference. So she was lamenting, that I gave my heart to him, and now I have to take Diksha from you. It's like, what could be worse than that? I think she's like a Siksha disciple. So, but that's a reality. So, when you ask the gurus, they say, how come you keep accepting? He said, because they keep asking, and they have faith, and they don't have faith in someone else. So that's a little tricky, because it's all based on faith. So, but they have counselor systems, so they're being taken care of. Rajalila and company. Do you know that in Ukraine, they have a program where they arrange for devotees' marriages and they take care of them and they have counseling? Yeah. And they've only had 3 divorces out of those 80.
Yeah, Uttaman Partha, they're expert caring for the devotees. Actually, they're caring for devotees pre-marriage.
Yeah. So
Pre-marriage.
Okay. So then that's the answer to Sarvatma's question. We need pre-initiation counseling.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And then, like, this is what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Are you ready for it? This is, and then counseling after initiation if you're having trouble.
Yeah, and Radhanath March does have that set up. That's just set up, at least in Mumbai. Yeah. But I see Prem Kishore here, and she had her hand up for a really long time.
Okay. I want to say one more thing to Sarvatma, then we'll ask Prem Kishore. I think, in my mind, in my world, it's the counseling, it's the support that's really most important. Because even if someone waits 10 years, if they don't have good support, they still may have problems. So we see, my wife's a marriage counselor, and 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 she counsels me also with what she learns. And it's like, it took me like 25 years to like figure it out, how to be an actual husband, it doesn't always come easy, but that counseling and that guidance is so helpful. So to me, that's really what's missing more than anything, that kind of support and counseling. Okay, Prema Kishori. Sorry to make you wait.
No, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sadev Prabhu is my senior, so his hand is up before me if he wants to
Oh,
go
okay.
first.
But ladies, we'll go ladies first anyway.
Thank you.
When
Hare
they were
Krishna.
serving out prasadam, Prabhupada said ladies and children first. I don't know, the brahmacharis never heard that. Now you've heard it, so no excuse. Okay, go ahead.
Very nice class, Prabhu. Very informative and full of realizations. Actually, maybe this is a sidetrack, but I have a question from the purport. When you were reading the purport, in the last paragraph, I don't know if I can bring it up. Prabhupada says that two kind of people whose results will be nullified at the time of death. The paragraph before, Yamraj never touches the devotees. And two of them is Karmi and Gyani, right?
Last part of the purport. Don't go near the devotees. Devotees aren't under
The
jurisdiction.
one before that, the
Oh.
Karmi and Gyani.
Okay, so what's the question?
The question is, in 7th chapter, 19th verse, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, I don't understand how a Gyani's effort will be nullified at death, because Krishna himself says, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanvan Mam Prapadyante.
Right.
So
Yeah. So like if you look at the story of a Jamil was free from all karma, right?
at the time of death, yes.
Yeah, at the time of death. But he didn't chant the name Narayan with bhakti. So it was namabhas. It was a very low stage of namabhas. And so namabhas nullifies your all sinful reaction. One namabhas can nullify more sins than you could commit in unlimited lifetimes. But for us, namabhas, what does it produce? If we chant namabhas in bhakti, then it removes anarthas. And if you chant Shuddhanam, you get prema. So because the jnanis don't have bhakti, they can't get out of this cycle. And until they come to bhakti, like Jiva Goswami says, nothing can be successful spiritually without bhakti. So until the jnanis come to bhakti, they'll just bahunam jamanam ante. They'll just go round and round and round. And they'll go up, Prabhupada said, they'll go up, they'll come down. They'll go up, they'll come down. Or they'll go round and round, birth and death, practicing. And the karmis will go up the heavenly planet, come down, go up, come down, if they create that good karma. So it's just if you free yourself from karma, okay, you reach Brahman, and then you come back down. And then you engage in karma, then you have to purify it. It's just like that's what's going on until you come to the point of bhakti. And then when there's bhakti, then now that's the loophole out. Is that what you were asking, or did I misunderstand the question?
So no, thank you. That's what I was asking. But then the core question in my heart is that Jnani is still not like a karmi, right? It's not like they're gonna be like zeroed from their account completely.
Yeah, well, the jnanis have nullified their karma, but they don't have bhakti. So they only go to Brahman. And if you have karma, so they're coming back because they want to. They go to Brahman and then they come back down because they have desire. They are, what did Prabhupada say? They get lonely. You know, the worst punishment in prison is solitary confinement. People go crazy. So, eternal solitary confinement. You're in Brahman.
Okay.
I mean, it's not as bad as jail. It's blissful, but by your desire, you come down. And then Prabhupada said, a lot of them come down and engage in karma again. Open hospitals and do this and that. So now you're, unless you completely nullify your karma, which you can only do through bhakti, there's no way out. You're always in the cycle, whether you're jnanis are, they go about it in a different way. And then, you could achieve Vaikuntha and Shantaras through yoga, maybe meditation, Paramatma. but we're heading for Braj. And so it's all about love and bhakti. You know, where's the love in Gyan? It's all nitty, nitty, nitty. Not this, not this. This is bad, this is bad, this is bad. It's all about renunciation, not about devotion.
Right.
So,
If I may add,
yeah.
Well, according to the verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakale Shanta, Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ataiva Shanta. So it seems like the Gyanis, as long as they have desires, they're never going to be peaceful. And Prabhupada said,
Yeah.
without peace, there is no happiness. So even without getting to the point of bhakti, as long as you have desires that are part of an agenda that doesn't belong, you're never going to achieve anything, especially not your own happiness.
Yeah. I want to be one with Krishna. Okay. That's antithetical to bhakti. Even I want to enjoy the holy name. I want to enjoy the kirtan. That's against bhakti. Only Krishna is the only enjoyer. You know, some of you heard that story. Bhakti Siddhanta, he wore glasses and he was taking darshan of the deities and he took off his glasses. And the devotee said, "Why did you take off your glasses? You can't see the deity." And he said, "It's not for me to see the deity. I'm here for the deity to see me. They're the enjoyers, not me." So he taught that a lot. So Gyani's still in the mood of enjoyment. I want to be God. I want to be one. Therefore, Shakaliya Shanta. Well, they and the karmis, yeah. Prabhupada says they're transcendentalists. They're better than the karmis. But, you know, okay, you're better than the karmis. So that doesn't in and of itself mean a whole lot. It just means you're not working, you're not creating karma, so you're better, but you're still not loving Krishna. So it's just a different variety of not loving Krishna.
In that vein, aren't we karmis as well? Because we also have an agenda. We also want something. Maybe we want, I don't know, to go back to Godhead or some kind of refined desire, but we still desire.
As long as what we want is in line with what Prabhupada wants and our gurus want, and our temple president wants, of course, then we're okay. So, and as long as our desire, Kabhi Habe Bola Se Dinama, we have all kinds of desires. I want to run up and down the Ganga, screaming Gauranga in ecstasy. Yeah, that's the desire I have. So we're not afraid of desire. That's just, what desire do you have? We want to see the whole world Krishna conscious. We want to help people. So Prabhupada is teaching us, okay, you have desire. Okay, here's the list of things you can desire, and here's the list of things you can't. So as long as you get it on the right list, you're fine. You desire that, you know, forever, and you're good, right? That's the beauty of bhakti.
Mahatma Prabhu, I know you're a wealth of wisdom. However, I'm watching that Sahadev's hand has been up. Also.
Sahadev.
Not facilitating this class. However, I'm just noticing devotees really want to tap into your wisdom.
Okay, Sahadev.
Prabhu, how do we learn about your japa conferences or japa workshops?
Well, just go to my website, mahatmadas.com. And well, if we're going to do japa workshops, we put that on my Facebook page, HG Mahatmadas. But my organizer is not really organized now, so we haven't done. The last one we did was, I think, November.
Thank you.
We were supposed to do. Okay, we're going to go to Sahadev, and forgive me for ignoring you.
Oh, not at all, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you for being here today. I had a question on desire, but it seems it's been dealt with in your last answer. So my other question is, I mean, I read this just yesterday, so that helps me a lot. Srila Prabhupada was saying that the different sampradayas, like the political parties, like we have the Democratic Party, we have the Republican Party, they seem to be opposing each other, but they are all working to serve the nation. And so different sampradayas, of course, are different, but their goal is the same, to serve Krishna. Now, the movement created for us by Srila Prabhupada, ISKCON, has its own teachings, peculiar teachings. And sometimes some of these different sampradayas also have opposing teachings to what Srila Prabhupada gave us.
Yes.
So in that sense, what do you suggest or advise as devotees to be aware of, so that we do not become inimical to other sampradayas, and we should not also deride what Srila Prabhupada has taught us? Because Narayan Maharaj specifically has lots of opposing statements to what Srila Prabhupada has said. And without shaming or distinguishing him and his group, how do ISKCON devotees also guide ourselves against what is contradictory to what Srila Prabhupada has already given
So
us?
you're
Hare
so,
Krishna.
you're not talking about like Sri Madhva Nimbarka Sampradaya, but you're talking about other Gaudiya movements.
Other Gaudiya, yes.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. The first thought I have is that some things may appear different and they're not. We just don't understand the depth of it. So that could be our knowledge may be limited, or maybe in another sampradaya they're going more deeply into it than Prabhupada has explained it. So now it starts to appear different. But if you study it through the literatures of the Goswamis, you realize, oh, it's not different. So that's one thing to consider. Is it actually different? And it's funny you asked this question, because I had a long discussion yesterday with some godbrothers on this topic. And one devotee astutely commented that there's two ways to understand Prabhupada. You go to the books of the Acharyas, you see their Siddhanta, and then you view Prabhupada through their books, or you view their teachings through Prabhupada. And we've seen in ISKCON that some devotees and outside, not only outside, but in, are looking at the Acharya, looking at Prabhupada through the Acharyas rather than looking at the Acharyas through Prabhupada. So that's where you start getting difference. And so, we were talking about rasa and fall from Brahman and how these things are explained differently in Gaudiya Math. And even within the Gaudiya Math, there's differences. Well, not in the Gaudiya Math, but in other Gaudiya organizations. Do you have a relationship with Krishna? No, you don't. It's developed by association. That's one philosophy. Is there love in the heart? No, there isn't. You get it from outside. These things that we Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. It doesn't mean that love is in there. It is all these different ideas. Is our relationship covered, or is it a seed? So some will say, no, it's covered. It's there. Some will say, it's only a seed. It was never there. It's like, So I was actually thinking about this yesterday, because we talked about it for about an hour. And after we had the discussion, I was telling Bhadahari, I said, could you imagine during Prabhupada's time, if we had a discussion like that, someone would have chopped our heads off to doubt Prabhupada. It's so, if we're in ISKCON, then, people may say, oh, you don't understand Siddhanta, this and that. And we'll say, well, I'm just repeating what Prabhupada said. Do you know that Prabhupada said you could go back to Godhead, and after going back, you could fall back into the material world? Did you know he said that? Which seems to be like, oh, that's against all Siddhanta that, our acharyas. And anyway, it's our duty to repeat and understand as best we can. So maybe there's a deeper understanding, maybe it doesn't happen in Prabhupada. It's a philosophical point. You always have independence. You could fall from anywhere, but it never happened. We can discuss these things, but we can't. What basically, when there's contradiction, the people in other Gaudiya Maths say, they find reasons why Prabhupada said that. He said that because you couldn't understand the other, or it would, if he told you what was actually true, it would freak you out. So he didn't say it. They say things like this, but we can't accept that because there's no evidence for that. So, but I think the best answer, Sahadev, is that in many of these issues, it doesn't matter. Because when the fall of the jiva was discussed with Prabhupada, Prabhupada's conclusion was, well, whether you come from Brahman or whether you fell from Vaikuntha, right now, you're not in either place. You're here. So just get back to God. So I think for us, we could get sidetracked a bit by discussing these things. And then we want to start reading what everyone else says, and it could be confusing. And we could even lose faith. Do you know there's a sampradaya which has rejected Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and then obviously Srila Prabhupada, who follows in their footsteps. And that sampradaya came, or that lineage came from Bhaktisiddhanta's own disciples, or Bhaktisiddhanta. They rejected him for other ideas that they heard from others. And that's why Prabhupada was so careful that we wouldn't associate with the wrong people. Because then you'll lose faith. Well, does Prabhupada not understand things? So if we're loyal to Prabhupada, then we have to see the acharyas through Prabhupada's teaching. If we see Prabhupada through their teachings, then there's going to be confusion. And some devotees in ISKCON do that. And that's also why you get controversy, because they'll say, no, but here in this Shastra it says this, here this, and say, no, but Prabhupada didn't say that. And they'll say, no, but Guru Sadhu Shastra, Shastra is number one. It's the top, and Guru is the third. And other devotees will say, no, we don't understand Shastra without Prabhupada. He's number one. So this is why you're finding, within ISKCON, that's just within ISKCON, not even going to Gaudiya Math, you'll find that. So I would just say, this is going to be going on for a long time. And ISKCON's going to have to deal with it. And the more we have scholars, the more the scholars can explain why the acharyas are saying things and equate it to what Prabhupada's saying. And sometimes for us, maybe we just see differences that aren't really there. And I would at least be open to that as well. Are you more confused now or less confused?
No, thank you so much.
Okay.
I really appreciate your answer. I am hoping that someday in the very near future, some ISKCON devotees can come up with a book to try to explain these topics to help some devotees, because it's hurting some devotees.
Well, we have Brihad Bhagavatamrita translated. If we translate Jaiva Dharma and other books, then that will kind of, let's say, well, this is, how we understand Prabhupada taught these points. Because if you read these other books, it can look like they're saying things that are different. And it's interesting. When Prabhupada was asked about the fall of the jiva, there were a lot of letters. And he could have just said, no, he did say, well, if you ask me, in my opinion, we were with Krishna and Vaikuntha. That's the conclusion he came to. So what are we supposed to say? And say, well, it doesn't seem like Jiva Goswami said that. Apparently Bhaktisiddhanta didn't say that. What are we supposed to do? Yeah, maybe that's true. But here Prabhupada said, I still say we were with Krishna and Vaikuntha. Okay. So, you can explain it in so many ways, but, and even Prabhupada says, you don't fall from Vaikuntha in some places in his books. It just complicates it more. And maybe Prabhupada's best advice is don't worry about it because you're not there anyway. And
Thank you.
Many devotees who could read Sanskrit got themselves in trouble because they'd read these other books, would say different things, and they'd leave Prabhupada. That was not uncommon. Actually, I'll rephrase that. That was common back in Prabhupada's time. The Sanskrit department, I think they lost everyone but Pradyumna. I think everyone, because they had access to these other books and they're seeing things that Prabhupada said that are different from what's in these books. They lost faith. And they thought, maybe Prabhupada's wrong. That's what, when Tamal Krishna Maharaj was going to university, he said, this is really difficult because you have to look at all these things in your academics. And he said, it's like somebody's got to eat the poison and do this. He said, but it was really hard because you'll see all these contradictions and have to make sense. And he told me, he said, in every religion, this is common. There's contradictions in every religion of how things came down, how they're understood. So it's just life. It's just life.
You have a question from Prajalila.
Prajalila, okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the class. There's a few points. You made so many, as Prem Kishore said, you made so many beautiful, points that, I was writing some things and some of them are like little sutras. Yeah. However, I have a question regarding the statement you made about humility, respect, not being offensive. And then you said, these are some of the prerequisites you said to have before, like thinking of going back to Godhead. Yeah. And nice attitude towards service. And, I'm just a little curious. We see that sometimes in our devotee association, we can really be chanting. We can try to be humble. We can try to be respectful. We can be trying to incorporate all those things in our devotional practice. However, we often may not be balanced in terms of our emotions, our cognitive experiences, our physical life, even our social life. Oftentimes we don't see that balance. So how do we reconcile going back to Godhead and following these beautiful principles that you gave, at the same time being balanced with what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, that we need to address all these four things?
I can express my realization that unless you're balanced, you can't express those four things truly. It'll be artificial and unstable. And as you know, Brajalila, low self-esteem and humility sometimes seem to be the same thing, and they're vastly different. So then you start running into problems like that. You mentioned emotional problems. Emotional problems are a huge cause of bad relationships. And if we have bad relationships, it harms our bhakti, and then the respect, the humility, it doesn't manifest well, or it can't manifest in a healthy way. So everything affects everything. And I think what you're pointing to with this question is that humility may not be real unless one has a balanced and healthy social, emotional, physical, mental, intellectual life, because they all go together. And if you just focus on your spiritual, you'll become imbalanced and you'll neglect the other, and you'll, for lack of a better word, you could become quite weird. And we've seen that in our movement. So we've seen in the Grihastha ashram how bad it is when devotees have bad relationships with their spouse, how it has ill effects on their Krishna consciousness and vice versa. We see how good relationships are essential. We see how if we're out of balance, if we're obsessive, we tend to become unsteady. We're like 32 rounds for a week, no rounds for the next week. When we were young, we thought these things don't affect us, but it's obvious that we're affected by them. Our spiritual life is affected by them. So my realization is it's a holistic process. And if you neglect any part, physical, emotional, psychological, intellectual, and just try for the spiritual, it doesn't work for most people, unless you live in a cave. I guess it's okay. You want to say something about it yourself?
No, thank you for that. Thank you. That's actually complete. Thank you so much. And I also want to thank Sarvatma Prabhu for this beautiful service he's doing, for this amazing Sangha in the mornings and sometimes in the evenings with such wonderful devotees like yourself. And we recently had Giraj Maharaj and so many others.
Nice.
Yeah, so we thank you for taking your time like this, and thanks Sarvatma Prabhu for being able to get into your time to bring you here to us.
And Sarvatma's humble, even though he was born in Argentina, which is kind of a, an impossibility for the average person.
Moronic.
Yeah.
I served in Argentina for some time with what's his Gunagrahi Maharaj.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I want to add. Can I add one thing, which I've seen over and over again? Low self-esteem is becoming more and more rampant, and humility is such an important aspect of bhakti. And when a person may have a qualification, spiritual qualification and desire, but if they have low self-esteem, it'll affect their ability to practice humility, because they'll need other people to honor them, and they'll have difficulty recognizing others better than them because it makes them feel worse. And then envy can come. If you have low self-esteem, you tend to be envious. And you could go down the list of how psychological problems can interfere with your spiritual development, even though on the spiritual side, you want it, and in a sense you have the qualification, but the psychology gets in the way. And so I once wrote a paper of 30 reasons we criticize, and not one of them was from Shastra. I was looking for other reasons, like psychological, circumstantial. And there's so many other reasons we may not think of that are not due to spiritual weakness, but due to a lack of social or psychological, emotional health. So definitely, we've seen this. And then you have the opposite, which Sridhanananda Maharaj calls as hyper humility, where it's just an act because we think that will help us. So we're like, oh, Prabhu, you are the effulgence of your toenails are radiating ecstasy in my heart. Can I polish your toes? You go to that extreme and somehow you think you're supposed to do that, but kind of make up, for the arrogance. So unless you're balanced, arrogance is the opposite of low self-esteem. They go together. So yeah, we really can't underscore the importance of emotional health in how it can disrupt our desire to be more humble and respectful. So I just wanted to clarify that, just add some icing to that. Thank you for the question. Sarvatma, did I interrupt you?
Yeah, no. I just wanted to backtrack a little bit to what you said about contradictions in every religion. Now, yes. we aren't really equipped. I would say no religion is really equipped to deal with that kind of factor. And on the side, I ask myself, how important is how many heads Lord Brahma has in my daily performance of devotional service. Or it came when I was reading a book called this Saints of Braj by O.B.L. Kapoor. The stories, I didn't know most of the people that were in the book. This Vrindavan saintly people went undiscovered, I would say. They were sort of unbelievable. Every story had some twist that was, wow, really? And but the result was that I was totally inspired by reading it. I got the point. So how important it is for us to logically understand or in some way reconcile the idea that there are contradictions in our religion in our scriptures and
Yeah.
what Prabhupada said at one time
Yeah.
or another?
Yeah. This is a broad question. There's a few things we can just touch on. The first point that I made to Sahadev, sometimes the contradictions are because we don't fully understand. Recently, we were having this discussion with some senior devotees, and they made a point which I was too dull to have recognized previously. But some of the times when you hear contradictory statements or controversial statements by Prabhupada, he was actually joking. It was a joke. He wasn't serious, and we took it seriously. You know, he was with a few people, and his sarcasm sometimes was subtle, and not everybody picked up on it. He didn't, actually mean it. So we have to be careful. Prabhupada has said there are differences between acharyas, and oftentimes that's a difference because of the difference of person, the difference of rasa, the difference of focus. And Prabhupada never seemed to have a problem. He would just say, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, but Baladev Vidyabhushana says this, and he doesn't try to reconcile it. It's just like, yeah, that's okay. It's like, it's okay. The spiritual world is big enough for differences of opinions. And that's the way Prabhupada presented it. And then we're told, well, don't take sides because then you'll offend the other Vaishnava if you take the side. Oh, I take the side of Baladev Vidyabhushana. I think Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is wrong. Don't take the side. And then Prabhupada said, and sometimes the Leelas play out different in different yugas. So that's why you get differences. And sometimes the acharyas, they add insightful, enlightened knowledge that came to them, or they're seeing it and they're writing it, and it's never been introduced before. For example, as I understand that you can have two forms when you're liberated, one in Gauranga Lila and one in Krishna Lila, if you want to be in both. And apparently that was never revealed before. So if that's true, and I believe it is, the understanding is that was what Bhakti-Vinod contributed. One of the things he contributed new to the Sampradaya. So sometimes you have that. But to me, the most relevant part of your question is, well, it's two. How do we deal with it personally? And like you said, the question is, how important is this to my advancement? And then we have this story, maybe you've heard of, these devotees went to Prabhupada and said, we don't understand, like 4 billion bodyguards or whatever it was, some huge number. And Prabhupada just brushed it off, like, who are you? What can you understand? But their mood was challenging. But how could that be, Prabhupada? And they were challenging. They asked other challenging questions. And Prabhupada didn't try to explain it. He said, it's in Bhagavatam, it's there. That was his mood. You just accept it. And then they became so challenging. At one point, Prabhupada said, you do not need a guru. You are more advanced than I am. I need a guru. Get out of here. Go enjoy the material world. He rejected them because they didn't have faith. So the problem that I see was kind of the problem that Sahadev Prabhu brought up. How do we reconcile differences within ISKCON, like you have female Diksha Guru differences, or, this difference, how will she deal with this and that? And they tend to be, the lines often are cultural. How do we deal with that without, and still be respectful towards the other side? I think that's the real problem, or those two things. How do we deal with it personally, not become confused, just accept that there are other points of view? And how can we be respectful to those with other points of view, the devotees in our movement? If you ever say, and I'm sure we've all said this, I can't understand why anybody would think like that. Have you ever said that? That's a red flag. That means you can't understand how someone else is thinking. That's a problem if you can't understand. I don't have to agree, but you should understand why they're thinking. Like if you ask me, why do people for Vaishnavi Diksha Gurus believe the way they do, and why those who don't believe the way they do, I can tell you exactly why. It has nothing to do with what I believe, but I want to understand their thinking, and I can respect it, or I can respect it at a distance and not agree with it. And I think that's extremely important. And not all of us have that skill to respect those we disagree with. Not all of us even have the skill to listen to the other party, isn't it? Like, I don't even want to listen to you because I don't believe you. And I have found in my life, one of the best things I can do is listen to people I don't agree with. I think it's so important to learn that skill because it helps you. And then sometimes it knocks down some of your prejudice. And try to understand, why do they believe the way they do? And then you start to understand the mentality of conservative thinking and liberal thinking. It's a certain mentality. It's a frame of reference. Why people think that way. And they're not ill motivated because they don't disagree with you, but that's how we think. How could you believe that? How could anyone believe that? What's wrong with you? That's where we run into problems. That's what I think is the challenge now in ISKCON, because the difference is they're going to be there. We're only seeing a couple now. They're going to increase, obviously, right? And how we handle it. It's a problem. The Vaishnavi Diksha Guru issue is on its like 18th year now, and we haven't been able to resolve it after 18 years. In my mind, that's a problem. It's not a Siddhantic problem. It's a problem of individuals not being able to come to some consensus. As mediators know, it's not that they're both one side has to agree and the other side has to give in. So basically, they're both not happy, but they can live with the decision. This is something that will keep us together. I wish it were like this, and this side wants it like this. Can you both live with this? Yes, we have to. Otherwise, we have two factions. So that's the challenge. And we all know we're prejudiced. We're opinionated. Does that answer your question, or were you asking something more specific that I avoided? Oh, you're still muted. Still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
No, it does answer my question, and actually reinforces what I've been learning lately. That like one of these devotee sanghas, devotee care sanghas, we use a game, so-called game called the Ungame. I don't know if you heard about it,
No.
but it may prove useful for some of your workshops. Some is used for 12 steps programs and stuff like that for people to open up, to challenge themselves a little bit. And it came about because a lady started losing her voice, so she was forced to listen to others, something she didn't do before. And we can all definitely, I can use, and most of us could use, and it actually presents a challenge that we are enamored of our Siddhanta and of the sound of our own voice, and we forget that there are other voices there. We may or may not agree, but it's irrelevant at one point, because you may agree with someone or disagree with someone, but their life may go in a terrible tangent, just with a small adjustment on our part, if we don't do it right. So yeah, I do appreciate your answer. Is actually right on.
And it's shedding it's shedding a light on our, this huge problem of what is in our books and what is in our culture being different, because our books are all about the culture of respect and humility and service. And then we're loggerheads now, which doesn't represent humility and respect. Because if I respect you, I can disagree with you, but I'll listen to you and I'll try to understand. I'll desperately try to understand why you think this way, even though I disagree. And in that way, we can make progress. And you will try to understand me. And now that we understand one another, then okay, let me tell you a story. This is, Prajalila, you really like this. So this is personal experience. So in San Diego, and the recordings are there, I think, online. There was the first Ritvik meeting in San Diego in, I don't know, 87 or something. So Jayadvaita Swami was there, Rabindranath Swarup was there. And then at that time, Rupa Vilas was Ritvik, and Karnamrita from England. They were representing the Ritvik idea. And there was a whole audience of senior devotees there. And it was all recorded by Nisringananda. So I was there, and it was just a debate. And, and you could imagine the consequence of the debate. A man against his will is of the same opinion still. There was no, it's like everybody's just hearing themselves talk, basically. And everybody's basically more convinced than ever. Because if I don't believe in Ritvik and I listen to your argument, just in the debate mode, I think the more you talk, the more foolish I think those ideas are, and vice versa. The more I talk, the more foolish you think my ideas are, if I'm trying to defeat you. So then fast forward, it must have been 97, 98 in Vrindavan. I was living there working with the VIHE. So I'm walking by one of the VIHE rooms and I look in the window and there's a Ritvik debate with the leaders of ISKCON and the leaders of the Ritvik movement. And they, charts and explaining the whole philosophy of initiation, and the Ritviks explaining why Prabhupada didn't want us to initiate. And I'm sitting there looking at that and I'm thinking, just intuitively thinking, shouldn't you be talking about how we're going to get along? Because you're never going to convince anybody of what you believe. Aren't you really wasting your time and just dividing one another? I was like, I never studied mediation or anything. That was just an intuitive thought that this is a waste of energy. And we see that today. Siddhanta wars, it's like in our tradition, debate, Siddhanta wars. Nobody's changing their side after the Siddhanta war. And I'm always thinking, that's not the conversation we're supposed to have. The conversation is, we don't agree. How are we going to move forward? Not agreeing, not trying to get the other side to agree. It doesn't work. To me, it's like, it's just common sense. But now they're the devotees, I would say rightly so, before they decide on the female Diksha Guru, Vaishnavi Diksha Guru, they want to talk about Guru Tattva. They feel like we haven't really clarified Guru Tattva. And everybody agrees with that. We need to talk about it. But you're going to get different sides. That's guaranteed because we're different. So now what do? So you've got different sides on Vaishnavi Diksha Guru. You have different sides on Guru Tattva, which then makes the Vaishnavi Diksha Guru divide even more clear of why we are for it or not for it. So now what do you do after you've done that and not agreed on details? I think the assumption is that we would agree, but we know that's unlikely. And if we don't agree, then what's the next step? In my mind, it's always, how are we going to go along with disagreeing? And I think that's the most important discussion. And that's the skill we need, because it's just a reality, right? Even in your temple, you disagree. Okay, how do we go get along disagreeing? That's the skill in my mind that we all need. And without that, we're going to have problems. There'll always be this like fear of there's could be a faction. They're going to break off because they don't agree. And Sarvabhauma, you're convinced this is the Siddhanta, and I'm convinced, no, that's not the Siddhanta. This is the Siddhanta. Okay, so what do? Siddhanta wars. I shoot a shloka at you. Oh, you pull out the arrow. You take that arrow, you shoot your shloka at me. And right? And what happens at the end of the day? We end up hating, thinking, I think Sarvabhauma is so, like, what's wrong with him? He doesn't understand the philosophy. He's been a devotee so long. And Sarvabhauma is like, I used to respect Mahatma, but it's like, he can't understand anything I'm saying. I just don't believe it. That's the conclusion of our Siddhanta war, rather than we disagree, but we're still friends. How can we move forward? I don't know. I mean, you don't need a PhD to figure that out, but somehow or other, that's not the predominating idea. It's let's fight out philosophy. And then we go back to the question, okay, different views on philosophy. We're different people. So what to do?
There is, I'm sorry, did I?
No, I
cut you short? Krishna Premi wrote something in the chat. You can take a look at it, or I can read it to you.
I'll read it. And then David said, 25 years not initiated. Yeah, no problem. Keep chanting. And Prabhupada's your guru anyway, so you've got a good guru. If there is time, I was asked, how important is psychology? Prabhupada said that eventually it is mental speculation. That's not psychology. Mental speculation is different. And makes one too focused on the bodily concept. I tried explaining based on your lectures, but how to actually explain the importance of emotional health in the devotional context so it doesn't clash. Well, there's a million there's not a million, there's so many devotees who've had emotional issues that when healed has had a tremendously positive effect on their bhakti. One of my godbrothers said, if your car runs out of gas, do you chant Hare Krishna and then get back in the car? So if you have an emotional issue, do you just chant it away? Well, maybe, yeah. And so the question is, well, how do I know? Well, that's easy. You try to chant it away and you're still traumatized. You're still having panic attacks. You still can't get along with anybody. You're on your 12th divorce. Yeah, you might, you're still addicted to this or that. Obviously you need other help. So that's not a contradiction. It's all for the purpose is to please Krishna. And so it's not your fault the holy name wasn't, invented as a psychotherapy tool, although it could be used that way as a byproduct, but not always. So in my mind, it's not even an issue. I don't know why people make it an issue. They have some fear of psychology. Like if you go into psychology, it's a secular humanistic subject, and all the psychologists now, starting to believe like consciousness is just material and they don't understand the mind and all that. Okay, that's understandable. But when it comes down to it, the healing modalities, don't really involve you in, becoming an impersonalist or anything. So I've seen time and time again, when I've helped someone solve a big trauma or emotional issue, it just stabilized their Krishna consciousness so much more. If not solve their Krishna conscious problems, which they thought were spiritual, but they weren't. They were psychological, emotional. This is called spiritual bypassing, where you want to chant away a problem that chanting away doesn't work. And you want to ignore the problem. You don't want to face it. So just try to chant it away. It doesn't work. You have to face it and deal with it and resolve it. And then your chanting will be better. I gave, I don't know, 7 or 8 classes on spiritual bypassing. I got so many devotees giving me feedback saying, oh, this was so important, because a lot of devotees felt that they were avoiding their problems in the name of sadhana and just burying, suppressing, repressing, ignoring, putting in the closet, and the problems don't go away that way for most people. If they go away by sadhana, fantastic. You don't have to deal with it. But if they don't, then you're going to need to do something. It's just my experience, and I'm sure Brajalila has 100 times more experience with this than I have, that, when the emotional is not working, it's just bad for everything. They'll have bad relationships, bad marriages. They have bad sadhana. They become critical because of it. And so
Krishna Premi added, I sometimes get told that one does not trust the power of a holy name and the Shastras to go to the psychology.
Yeah, all right. So if your car needs repairs, just chant Hare Krishna, see if it works. I think the simplest answer is what I gave. Okay, what if I don't trust the holy name? Okay, I don't, and I'm trying to, right? And I was sexually abused as a child. Like, that is the worst thing any leader could say to somebody. You were sexually abused as a child over and over again by your father, by your relatives. Just chant your trauma away. And this person is waking up every day with flashbacks and panic attacks. Like, that's a travesty to the position of leadership to say that. And I think if I were in charge of ISKCON, I would not allow any leader to not be educated in these things, so they would never say such things. This is harmful. This is abusive, actually. Leaders need to understand this. And if, as I said, if it's true, okay, I'll put faith in the holy name. I go to 1 million japa workshops and still I'm waking up with flashbacks, then we need to do something. And it's not a lack of power of the holy name. The holy name was not created as a tool to heal trauma. It can, but that's not its purpose. So if it doesn't do that, it's not necessarily lack of faith. It's just, its purpose is to give you love of God. And, we saw so many crazy devotees in the 60s and 70s healed by the holy name. But the craziness in 2021 is much different than it was in 1970. There were none of us came from divorced families. None of us were being sexually abused then. None of us were raised by alcoholic parents. That I don't know any devotee in those days who had parents who were alcoholics. Or now that's kind of normal. I don't say normal, but it's common. That's a whole different ballgame. So, Sarvam, I deal with this all. I deal with this all the time. Devotees getting bad advice from leaders who say, "I don't want anything to do with psychology. It's just Maya," and they're giving horrible advice, which is detrimental to the psychological health of devotees under their care, because they don't understand what's going on psychologically. If your parents are alcoholic, they have a 12-step program for children of alcoholics. Like who would understand that unless you've studied it? That if your parents are alcoholics, quote unquote, you've got problems. You need help. I was going to say you're messed up. I don't want to say anybody you're messed up, but you need help. Most of us will need help. How many leaders understand what trauma is and how it's healed? What are panic attacks? What are flashbacks? We have to understand these things. Otherwise, we'll create more harm. And I see this all the time. And it makes me really angry when people say this, because they okay, study it in depth. And then if you say it, we can talk. But if you haven't studied it, it's just faith in the holy name. No. Show me the shloka where the holy name was created. The holy name was created to give you prema, not therapy from trauma. If it does, it's a byproduct. It's welcome. Hare Krishna. I'm getting angry now.
Before we go to Sahadev Prabhu, who has another question, I want to say, I want to thank you to put things in the open as they deserve to be. As we are not in a state of emergency, at least not the same kind that Prabhupada had, that gave sannyas to 21-year-olds, because he thought that he wasn't going to live very long. So he needed to spread the movement one way or another, made people in charge of schools who had no education and bad habits on top of that. So I commend you on trying to foment or promote this idea that we should be educated. We are no longer kids. This is not an emergency. We have enough people and enough resources, and they're available to anyone to educate themselves before they open their big shastric mouth. So please, Sahadev Prabhu, sorry to take your time. Just go ahead and ask.
May I say one thing before Sahadev?
Sorry. Yes, please
give me your permission, just because I don't want to, just to keep this track that we're on. So Mahatma Prabhu and a few of us are involved in what is called HEARTS. This is an organization in ISKCON. It's dedicated to holistic emotional awareness, relational training support. And so you can go on the HEARTS website and you can find out more about how to get some information regarding what Mahatma is talking about. Okay, Prabhu, thank you.
And that group was established to deal with this very problem of both leaders not understanding the psychological makeup of the people they're ministering to, and also not understanding their own psychological makeup, because that becomes a real hazard in leadership. And that's why this group was established, to help devotees and become emotionally healthy and help leaders be better leaders. Okay, thank you for that.
Can somebody put the link in the chat, the link to that site?
Yeah, I think Rajalila, you can do that. Yeah, okay. Sahadev.
Hare Krishna, thank you once again. I have a request and a comment. So I don't know which one to go first. I think the request is, probably on behalf of the Hare Krishna Africa platform, which you've been on a couple times.
Yes.
We're begging to see if you can grace our platform sometime in March, if possible.
Well, that's the platform where I have to give class at 3:30 in the morning, right?
No, the time has changed.
Okay.
It's 10 o'clock.
Okay, well,
Eastern time.
long as in March before Gaur Purnima, after that, I'm going to India.
Or before Gaur Purnima? Okay. So is
Well,
there a way
you can write me, and then we'll figure it out.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Now, my other concern is I'm so grateful that I was able to attend your class today because I've learned so much.
Make that comment. Okay.
I've learned so much from your class today. And most importantly, what you said, that devotees some devotees are reading into the bygone acharyas through Srila Prabhupada. And there are some that are reading through Srila Prabhupada through the acharyas, which to me, Srila Prabhupada himself has said that do not jump. If you jump, you break your leg. So when we jump in over Srila Prabhupada to the other acharyas, with that first understanding, trying to understand what Srila Prabhupada gave us, I think that is where the problem lies.
Yes.
And
yes.
you rightly said also that there seem to be contradictions. And Srila Prabhupada said in a lecture he gave, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 20, text 353 to 354. In that lecture, Srila Prabhupada said, so Lord Chaitanya advises, Sanatana Goswami's inquiries how to know that he, and then he cuts it off. Here is avatar. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, the medium is Shastra and direction is the Guru. Shastra. Also, we cannot understand any book, what to speak of the scripture. Sometimes we find contradiction in the scripture. That is not contradiction. That is my poor fund of knowledge. I cannot understand. Therefore, assistance of Guru, a spiritual master, is required. So if me, being an ordinary devotee, reads something that appears to be contradictory, then it's due to lack of my poor fund of knowledge. I have to approach a spiritual master. But if I'm approaching a spiritual master or a guru who is jumping over Srila Prabhupada to understand the other acharyas, then how does that guru help me? I think that is where the problem is. And because we are also very cautious of not committing aparat, especially guru aparat, we are very careful what we say to a guru whom we think is probably bypassing Srila Prabhupada to get it to other acharyas. So that is where the problem is. And somebody like you, with your approach, maybe you can also express more to the leadership so that the general devotees can also benefit, so that we do not have doubts in our gurus that this guru cannot or will not even tell me what Srila Prabhupada meant by this. So that is my point. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I think most leaders do that. One area I see a problem is when we talk about Varnashram and very traditional ideas, then you're going to go Motor Shastra because Prabhupada has said less about it. Although Prabhupada has said things about it, but it's not clear that he wanted us to implement those things exactly as he described how they were in the past. And then you get conflict there with the more devotees who are more adaptive and the ones who are more traditional. So the problem is also we are going through Prabhupada, but now we're focusing on one section of what Prabhupada said. So then it's a matter of hermeneutics and how to understand the context. So, and that was my point of why I feel that learning how to respect one another is essential, because this is always going to be there, even though, like we say, okay, we're going to understand the acharyas through Prabhupada, not the other way around. if the Acharya says something different, we'll go back to Prabhupada and say, no, but he says this. Let me try to understand that Acharya through what Prabhupada's saying. If somehow or other I can't, I'll just, well, this is what Prabhupada said. But someone else is going to go to another part in Prabhupada's books and say, but he said this here. And now we're going to have that even internally sometimes. And there is room for differences, like those kinds of differences, which may be more practical applications of the philosophy. There's room for those if we're mature. There's room for, a very conservative element, a very liberal element in our movement in different orders, but we haven't got there yet because we're trying to be homogeneous. And that's probably not possible. We're seeing that, not entirely in every area. Okay, so Sarvatma, it's 2 hours.
Yes, I think it's a good time to put a pause. I would say this creates precedent for a continuation for the saga of the Mahatma tirades, the Mahatma spiritual plants, which we need desperately. And I want to thank you personally and in general, in the name of all the devotees, for kindly agreeing to talk to us. And perhaps we can do a repeat performance some other time at your discretion and our convenience as well. And now I want the devotees to please unmute themselves and express their appreciation for your.
You can show your videos. Let's see your lotus face.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare
Hare
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mahatma Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Gurudev.
Hare Krishna, Mahatma Prabhu.
Pranams.
Wow. You're welcome. And Hare Krishna to all of you.
Hare Krishna.
You're well loved.
There's Bhakti David. Someday, Bhakti David, Prabhupada's your guru. Don't worry. You're fine.
Thank you very much.
You can't force anyone to take initiation. It'll happen when it happens.
Yes, I've had that.
And if it doesn't happen, you can still go back to Godhead. Don't worry. Okay, it was nice being with all of you.
Hare Krishna.
We will see you as by Sarvatma's desire. We will see you soon again and discuss the philosophy and the controversies and the sensitive issues. And Prema Mai asked the question. She apologized for getting me angry. I think it was perfect. Because I don't get angry that often. And when I get angry, it's like, you probably like, whoa, this is important. Yeah, it is important. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.